Good morning and welcome back to Untermyer Gardens. I'm standing in a bed that we call the Love Triangle. It's a bit of a working title, not as fancy a name as, say, the Temple of Love or the Rock and Stream Garden, which we've looked at, but this particular area does define and unite those two gardens in an interesting way. The Rock and Stream Garden comes in the hill behind me, and I'm standing here next to the Temple of Love. This bed provides a definition for the Temple of Love area, the cascade beds and the stream itself, and then we planted a big evergreen planting to screen the woods and the tour paths as you come to the Temple of Love, and so it kind of creates a surprise and a transition as well. So with general design in any of our garden beds or garden areas, we like to start with the woody plants because they provide the structure, and then we can work around that with annuals and perennials and shrubs. And so I'm standing here in front of a juniper. It's Juniperus CHINENSIS Blue Point. It'll get about 15 feet tall, stay about 5 to 6 feet wide, and it has this glaucous blue foliage. To contrast that, interestingly, is this SUMAC or Rhus COPALLINUM. This plant will get 7 to 15 feet tall. We only planted it a few years and I can already reach the top of the plant. It is a colonizer, and so in addition to that 7 to 15 feet tall, it'll just keep spreading out. You can keep it maintained by getting rid of the young root shoots that are coming up, but it makes a nice filler plant. Almost any soil to almost any light exposure. And then what really defines this spot and kind of creates a wall from the rest of the Temple of Love into the woodland is one of my favorite Chamaecyparis. It's a Chamaecyparis.nootkatensis Pendula. This plant will get 30, 35 feet tall if it's really happy, 10 to 15 feet wide. We've planted a little grove of them here to act as a screen between the formal garden and the woodlands. So now I'm standing in front of a grouping of a self-sowing plant. It's in the carrot family. In fact, the name is Daucus CAROTA. Dara is the full name. You can also find it in the trade as Dara, so you can find it either way. It resembles Queen Anne's lace, which can be a beautiful but very weedy plant in the garden and in the landscape. This is much more contained. It opens with white flowers that fade to a fairly pinkish color and end up with this deep purple before it sets seed. It'll throw itself around the garden, and then you can just remove it where you don't want it next spring. So in addition to the big Chamaecyparis that sort of defines the back half of this bed, is we put in a triplet of upright junipers. This is a plant called Juniperus CHINENSIS Hetzii Columnaris. It's a fastigiate, tight-growing plant, only 4 to 5 feet, maybe 15 feet tall, and makes sort of a neat sculptural element in the front of this bed. Right now it's showing off its it's showing off its juniper berries, which adds a really ornamental aspect to the plant. Again, being an evergreen, it'll anchor this corner through the entire year. So in addition to the big woodies we've used throughout this bed and some perennials here and there, we've really made use of self-sowing plants. One of my favorite self-sowers and one of my favorite salvias is here in front of me. It's Salvia SCLAREA. It's a variety called TURKESTANICA. It's a self-sower, but it has these very distinct leaves. It's easy to see when it comes up in the spring as a seedling. If it shows up anywhere in your garden where you don't want to see it, you can just pull it out quite quickly. It has these purple bracts and these white to pink flowers, and is really one of the showier salvias, and we really like to use it here. Another self-sowing plant that's a lot of fun, it's just about to go past peak, is this Consolida AJACIS, or LARKSPUR. Grown as much, in my mind, for the fine foliage as these beautiful flowers that emerge in either pinks or purples or whites. It's up to the plant. We have no control over that, but it's a lot of fun to use as well. Woven in here is one of our native milkweed cultivars. It's Asclepias Cinderella. Again, a 2.5 to 3 foot plant with these really interesting flowers with purple falls and white centers. So not everything that happens here as we plant is directly on purpose and pre-planned. We grow a lot of Nasella, TENUISSIMA, which is a Mexican feathergrass, as a filler plant, and we grew so much last year we had hundreds left over, so we just filled up this corner sort of as a placeholder, but have grown to really love what it's doing. This is one of the finest textured grasses we can use, and the light brown fuzzy flower on top really adds interest to it. It is marginally hardy, so be careful if you're using it, you know, much below zone 6 or much above zone 6. We have had some die out from time to time. This year we started interplanting it a little bit. This is an Aquilegia. It's Denver Gold, and this is an Aquilegia CHRYSANTHA, which is known for these long spurs. So this is just hanging on. We are transitioning into summer as we speak, so it's nice to still see an Aquilegia in the garden. And then over my shoulder here is a plant that I've been hesitant to use for a while, but I think it's sort of working here, is Liatris. This is Liatris spicata. I believe it's a cultivar called Kobold, which is a dwarf version. This plant, the straight spicata species, will get 3 to 4 feet. This plant will stay in about 1.5 to 2 feet. So thanks for walking around the love triangle with me. The hydrangeas up in the walled garden are just starting to come into their own. So if the weather works out and they keep moving along, we'll take a look at hydrangeas next week. Take care.